Thursday, January 10th. I guess it was around this time last year where I started interacting with a very cool person on Twitter. Might have been even longer ago than that. Then we finally got to meet in May, and she is now like a head of state, or at least of a school board. My friend, somebody else that I super vibe with, Sheena Barnes, will be along shortly. We'll chat. She's going to be on our weekly public affairs show that I host here for Cumulus Sunday mornings across all the stations. That's called Contact. So you know the deal by now. The first 20 minutes are pretty straight and narrow. And then we'll open it up a little bit. Before we get to Sheena, I forgot to mention this. It was during the break. I think I might have gone downstairs in the middle of the night to get a late night snack, and I'm usually pretty good with this. I haven't lost anything in now 7 months. Long story short, I misplaced my bottom retainer, and they gave me extras because they said you'll probably lose them or break them or whatever, and I didn't put them in because it had only been 10 days or so. But I went back to a previous tray. I don't know if that was good or bad, but I wasn't going to wait too long to go to the next retainer. So fast forward to Sunday. This is at least 10, 12, maybe 14 days later. I wake up and I feel something at the edge of my bed. And I knew exactly what it was as soon as I touched it, because I've been touching these things for 7 months. It was my bottom retainer at the edge of my bed. Now, there's a lot of questions that you are very right to throw at me and ask and raise an eyebrow, some of which I raise both of my own eyebrows. Usually when I get up in the morning, trays or retainers, whatever they are, I take them out, put them on a little table I have across from my bed, at the foot of my bed, a couple feet away from the foot of my bed. Then I go in, I brush my teeth, get dressed, grab both my retainers, usually stick them in my mouth like Steph Curry mouth guard style, take them downstairs, and then put them on the counter, let the dogs out, come back inside, grab my gym bag, put my retainers back in my mouth, go in the car, put them in the container, in the holder, like it's like a little circular container. I go have my coffee. When I'm done my coffee, I put them back in my mouth for the duration of the morning until I eat something. How this retainer got to the edge of my bed, I have no idea. And again, the questions you can ask are numerous. One positive would be, wow, they really are invisible because you didn't see it. And I as little as 10 days, as much as 2 weeks, I did not see them. Invisalign is true. The next question I kind of asked myself was, why did the dogs do anything with it? Because I've had Andre come for the trays before because they're in my mouth. There's food there. He tried to eat one of my trays in the past. I don't know. Maybe he didn't see it, but he could have smelled it, right? So why didn't the dogs get one of it? I'm not a super restless sleeper, and we've got a big bed. It's a king-size bed. It's me and 50 pounds of dog. There's a lot of space, but with all the rustling and whatnot, and I spent a lot of time in bed during the break. How it seemingly just sat there. The other thing you can ask is, well, there's two things you can ask. Eric, tell me about the covers. If you didn't know this about me, so I sleep on my comforter. I think my mom used to call it it's a Velux blanket. Is that right? It's thin, but it's warm in the wintertime. It's cool in the summertime. It is good year round. There's rarely a time where I'm cold and need other blankets. Sometimes I'll just be wearing more clothing, but I sleep on my comforter with that blanket on me. Okay, Eric, that's a little bit weird, but you said 10 or 14 days. Yeah. How often do you change your bedding? Let's not go there. But I thought that I did wash this stuff within that time frame. It's like this thing went to another dimension. It's like it went to the quantum realm and came back, and now it's in my mouth. A lot of words are going to come out of my mouth. She's a great person, a great human being, has somehow enough time or has stretched the hours in the day to be an immaculate part of the TPS school board, a mom, and she also has a regular job. Let's talk to Sheena Barnes. We have had a lot of important people come in this studio and visit. We have had people from other countries, other planets. We have had food truck people, but this is the first time we've ever had a head of state, or at least we've never had a president before. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all colors, shapes, and sizes, is this your first interview, like media interview, since you become
as a president? Yes.
Let me present to you the president of TPS School Board, Miss Sheena Barnes.
Woo! I am excited to be here, Eric. Let's go.
Mind you, so Sheena and I have known each other for like well over a year now on Twitter, and then we had our first meeting at coffee the day I got COVID and went off to the NAMI walk, and that was in May. I've got to put some guardrails in place here.
Yes.
We have to keep our Twitter snark to a minimum for at least part of this, okay?
So you're saying we have to be good.
Mostly good.
Okay.
Mostly good. If we get off the rails, I'll pull us back.
Okay. Awesome.
What does the president of the TPS School Board do?
Pretty much the same thing as a regular school board. They're involved in more conversations regarding the district, but overall, what the board members brings to the table is what they do. Just a more enhanced level of visible. That's it.
How many people are on the school board currently?
5. Yes.
How long were you on the school board before being bumped up to president?
This is now going into my final year. I'm up for re-election, and I'm gearing up for that. So it's a 4-year term. So we have rotations. So you do the good work, you hopefully get the votes and blessings of your fellow board members, and then you become president eventually. So
sounds very political. Do you need any candy and any $20 handshakes?
Well, I love candy, but that, I don't do bribes. So
not yet.
Never.
What initially got you into being involved with the school board? You have 2 kids in the school system?
I have 3. My oldest graduated in 2018 from Bowser High School, and I have a 15-year-old at Jones Leadership Academy of Business, and then I have a 9-year-old at Glendale Philbach. Honestly, I was frustrated as a parent. I didn't understand just the gaps that I was seeing as a community advocate that works with youth. I'm a special needs mom as well, and just seeing the trauma of gun violence and how it impacts retention and education and of course, behaviors wasn't getting addressed on a macro level. And as someone who works with our youth that deals with, these situations, I was like, somebody needs to talk about that and advocate for that. And I was looking around for somebody, and somebody said, why don't you do it? And I was like, yeah, right. And I guess here I am.
So this is 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that, before the gun violence issue really exploded. Tell me your thoughts, your perspective from where it was to where it is now, where it's unfortunately news all the time.
The thing about it, as someone, born and raised in Flint, Michigan, which was the number 1 homicide city under 100,000 population, gun violence has been a part of my life for a long time. So the trauma has always been relevant to me. I think the thing now that we're seeing is it is now impacting other communities.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing it more. That's why we're hearing about it more. A lot of communities in high poverty, communities of color have already been sounding the alarm about, the increasing of gun violence. And I think for the first time, with the mass shootings and school shootings, now it becomes everyone's problem.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's an increase in a difference. It's more of an increase of affecting communities.
What are your kids like? Tell me about your kids.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, Jones Leadership, not a regular TPS school, like a...
Yeah, so it's an academy that focuses on business. It's amazing. The youth that graduate from there, they can have certifications. They have internship offers.
Let me hold you right there. We'll come back to that, because one of the things I love about TPS is the specialty schools that they offer.
Yes.
Your kids that are in TPS now, what's their feeling? Like, what is it like for them to go to school knowing that gun violence hangs over their head? It's different from Springfield or Sylvania. It's more ever present.
Yes. So my 15-year-old unfortunately lost a classmate. So for the first time, it directly impacted him, and we navigated through that trauma. And it's a hard space to live in when you are trying to focus on being successful and thriving, but don't know if you're next. And that's what a lot of kids are facing and thinking about as they go to school, as they are learning. besides having a safe space to call home and things of having food, but also, am I going to be a victim of gun violence? And that's one of the important reasons why I joined to be the liaison for Students Demands Action, which is our youth chapter here that advocates and fight against gun violence.
Paint a picture for me, as grim as it could be for a kid in TPS, because I know is what a very large percentage. You give me the exact number if you know it. It lives in poverty, and then just go from there. Paint me the picture of a kid in TPS.
As I advocate, I try to focus on the most marginalized kid, and you're thinking about someone who's experiencing homelessness, whether that's couch surfing or staying in a shelter. We have more kids really couch surfing, don't know if they have food, maybe experiencing abuse. And then on top of that, you have gun violence, you have maybe substance abuse in the home or around them. So day to day, everything changes for them. Nothing's normal but trauma.
And oh yeah, by the way, get your homework in on time.
Yes, and get your homework in on time. You know, make sure you stay in awake in class, even though you may not had nowhere to sleep and been up since 3 o'clock in the morning, or being woken up by gun violence.
Yeah.
So trying to navigate all those things and still be successful in school is some of these kids' real lives. You know.
What percentage, and maybe that's the darkest example, what percentage of kids in TPS have that kind of life or something similar to it? And if you just want to, estimate it by all means, I'm not going to hold you to any number.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We don't know. No one knows because we don't have enough resources to even try to gather all that. Some of these kids who are experiencing homelessness or abuse don't have a space to say this thing. So we don't know what all our kids are experiencing, but what we can try to do is make sure we are there regardless. We have someone, a counselor or a principal or a teacher that they can talk to, because we honestly, and this is coming from me as a community organizer and as a school board member, we can't see a picture because it's not really painted, because it's so difficult.
Yeah, I get it. Walk me through the bureaucratic red tape, something that I've always misunderstood, and this is like an honest question.
Okay.
So I know that schools get funding based on attendance, grades, test scores, all that stuff. I think we grew up in a time where it wasn't as rigorous and teach the test and all that stuff.
Yes.
So these kids that are maybe in and out of class all the time, how does that affect funding for like TPS if they're not there, if they're not doing well? Walk me through some of that bureaucracy and making sure that TPS gets the funds they need.
Well, really being honest, like the funding is on a system of classism. If you want to throw a little racism in there, it's also that too, because it's based on how well your community is. And so when you have an increase of poverty, gun violence, blah, 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 you tend not to have a lot of homeowners in that area. And so therefore we rely on the taxes for that. And then the funding from state, which they're trying to always cut. Whether it's because we're supporting our queer kids, whether it's supporting, teaching the truth, whatever, they are trying to attack it, to diminish it, to make sure we are no longer functioning. The goal for some people in office, Republicans mainly, is to privatize schools so they can teach whatever they want or not teach whatever they want. So it ties into that. And if we have kids who are always transient, moving from school to school, can't catch up, can't graduate because of their trauma or their environmental challenges, then it looks bad and we quote unquote get called a failing school district when that's not truly the case.
When it's a failing school district, and I've seen those letter grades in years past before, and then thankfully the stories that I've read, mostly here like local media and whatnot, have said, well, hold on a second. There's this, and this, and we'll get to some of the good things Dr. Durant, I think, is doing. But when the school is failing or whatnot, does that mean less funding from local and state governments?
Not necessarily less funding in the direct way. It's more of less attendings. So as we lose kids, then therefore we don't qualify for certain thresholds. And I can definitely speak to that, because when I started running in 2019, roughly our student body was roughly around 26,000, 27,000, and currently we're right now at 22,000. I
read a stat the other day, and I think it was about New York. I forget what the source was. But the piece went on to say this is urban schools in cities all over, and like a record high truancy rate. It was 27%, 37%. And I remember, like, when we were growing up as kids, truancy meant you were out there eating pizza and doing things in the streets.
Yeah.
Truancy is vastly different now, much so because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, definitely. That uncovered a lot of things, good and bad, right? You know, we discovered that access is needed more in urban areas and in rural areas. But also we realized that a lot of kids relied on transportation to attend school. So that's why I'm really happy that we have a department that focus on truancy, and we call them attendance champions, and they go out to the homes, they go out and engage the family to see how we can keep them in school. It's
not necessarily like Sheen and Eric sitting at home playing Nintendo, avoiding school. Maybe they have to stay home to take care of a family member, or maybe they have to go work.
Or if they miss the bus and they don't have transportation to get to their schools. Some of our kids don't live in the areas, you know, that they attend, the school they attend, because this is the one thing that they're familiar with, their school. So as a parent that also did the same thing, it's like, I'm going to send you to the school, but I was privileged to have transportation for my daughter so she can attend Bowser, even though he was in a Scott district. And so when you miss the bus, therefore you can't go to school that day. So it's a lot of different layers of why our kids are not coming to school. Some may just be sitting at home eating pizza, right, playing video games. But we uncovered during the pandemic and, you know, during studies that it's a lot of different layers.
Yeah. How challenging is it to approach these problems? Because one thing that you just said, everything is a combination of things. And that's why it's so painful, so slow to solve problems. You talked about the kid that missed the bus, can't get to school. If they can't get to school, we just talked about attendance being lower, and then funding doesn't come that way. You get overlooked a little bit. And obviously not colorful language, but be as emotional as you like. How frustrating, how challenging is it to solve these problems, especially since it's 5 people on the TPS school board?
Yes.
That's not a lot for 26,000 kids in the district.
Yeah. Well, we work with our admin staff and our cabinet really well. This is, you know, we try to do a team approach. It's not us, just the board, just making all the decisions. We definitely try to work with our superintendent and our superintendent assistant and the cabinet, because this is a bigger problem than 5 people, right? Yeah. Although the voters entrust us to do what's best, we need a team to address these issues. It is extremely frustrating, especially when you know some of these kids. I still work in the community. I still have community babies that I see, and to know that mainly they're suffering because of some type of financial or some type of idea of people that live in poverty, stigma that lives in poverty, you know, and it's just very irritating to continue to have these discussions and to continue to fight sometimes when some people just don't want to see other than they are doing this because they're poor. They're doing this because they're black or brown or whatever, and still have that underlying bigotry in it. That's the frustrating part when you're having these conversations. They don't see the formula that's shaped up for these children to fail. Give
me, no matter the size, a win that you're really proud of as your time on the board and as you move into your presidency.
You know, it's been so many. I try to reflect, because as soon as I got on the board, 3 months in, we had our pandemic. So that was a whirlwind. But I would say that trying to make sure we keep our teachers, our staff, and our students safe was major. You know, we were all figuring something out that no one knew or anything about, I think was a big challenge. But because we kept them somewhat in the educational mode, and I'm going to be honest about that, because it was a struggle for me at home on a Zoom call with 2 kids on Zoom, but somehow we got through it. I think that was a big success for me personally, as a mother and as a school board member, trying to figure out how to navigate that.
How about something more microscopic? Maybe if it's just like a mural at a school or something.
I would think the thing I still go wow about, that's what you're asking, I'm in the Library of Congress. Our website was archived in the Library of Congress. So that's something that I never thought.
It's a big deal.
ever in my life, that I would even have something like that. So that's still a wow factor for me.
One of the things that I've always been impressed by with TPS is the specialty offerings that they have. I remember years ago at my old place, I got to do a remote one day at the aviation school.
Yes.
Right off 475. It's TPS, for where it is financially compared to suburban school districts seem to have a lot of unconventional offerings for students so they can pursue things that they might want to do right out of high school while they're still in it. Can you talk about some of those specialty programs?
Dr. Durant is an innovator, and I think when you are, you come from the area, you work in the area, some of the things that you were denied. And that's one thing that I applaud him on, is making sure that our kids have the best, even though they're in our community. I think fighting that stigma of what you can achieve because you grew up in the zip code. So we have ANSTAT, like you mentioned, Aerospace and Natural Science Center. We have J-Lab, which is our Academy for Business. We have a Career Tech in Barber. We have Construction Academy, Engineering, Welding. So we are definitely trying to make sure that our kids know that you are anything you want to be, and you can achieve that here in public schools.
And you don't have to hear what because we're, again, roughly the same age, hear what was always whispered in our ear.
I think you're
That's
older
right.
than me.
You're way older than me. If you want to be anything, you got to go to college.
Yes.
You got to go to college.
Yes.
I'm glad that TPS is so far ahead, saying, whoa, you want to go be an engineer, weld stuff, go do it. Isn't there... I'm pretty sure it's TPS. Isn't there something with ProMedica or Mercy that's pretty recent as well?
We just got our med school up and running, and it's like a straight pathway to anything in health science and healthcare. I call it health science, but it's healthcare.
Sure.
And so that's really amazing, and that's one of the things that I am really happy about, because that's how I got my start into nursing, as because of Skills Trade Center that was offered by my high school in Michigan, and to see that come here and know that the barriers it removed for me is awesome to offer our students. So we're really digging in, looking at all opportunities that we can offer our kids. More to come. Dr. Durant doesn't stop. So, he's just always thinking and always being innovative. So I'm excited to see what we're going to develop, in the near future.
I've met him a couple of different times, never had like a real sit down like you and I have had. I've never stuck my nose in his business far enough. And I know he's a super busy guy. I know he can leg press like 800 pounds. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Durant, other than he is always well dressed.
Well, yeah, he's always, I got to step my game up with my suits and stuff.
Don't even bother with him.
No.
You and me together, nothing to him.
If you ever want to see someone who actually really, really, and I'm going to say it's in the Bible, so I can say give a damn about kids, this is Dr. Durant. Like, he lives it. He breathes it. He's taking calls individually from kids. He's meeting kids where they are. He's making sure like as many needs are met, and I don't know how he do it. I thought I did a lot, but then I saw his schedule and I see how he does it, and does it because he wants to, not because of the fame, not because of the money, not because of some type of accolade. It's because he knows, what that feels like as a kid, a graduate from Wait. He knows the challenges that these kids go through, and that's why he shows up. So he's like kind of their superhero.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when I'm trying to explain to actually kids and adults what I do, like as a school board member, and I go through this whole thing. I oversee 54 schools, blah 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 blah. They're like, yeah, want. Then I say, well, I'm Dr. Durant's boss. They go, oh, wow, you're cool now. I'm like, well, thanks.
You're right. He is a rock star. When I think of him, and when I first got here and saw the things that he did, I just know the people would give TPS a very hard time. But I thought, you know what? At least this guy is a champion.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to start, so that these kids, when they do get to school, like you said, they can look at him and see a rock star and a role model and go, if he came from there, I can push through and do it as well.
Representation matters, and it's just not just one area. Like when you have someone and he's very proud to graduate from Wait, just every time he will let you know where he comes from. And it's awesome, because now the kids don't feel ashamed, to say that they are TPS graduates or they are from the East Side, and that's beautiful. I love that, because I'm always proud to be a Flintstone, so I get it,
When... Where was I going with that? Oh, when we talk, when we have a lot of these conversations, at least in certain settings, it doesn't resonate. We're not talking to the audience of parents and aunts and uncles and cousins of who you had described. I aim to carry that message to who is here. Somebody that lives in Springfield or is in Sylvania or is in West Toledo or is in Maumee. And I not that they don't care. I want to be a source for that.
Yeah.
So how can those people help?
Mentorships, volunteering, reading to our kids is one of the biggest ways to, starting off young, right? Is one of the ways to introduce them to someone else, is to introduce them to a relationship. But then as you get to the older kids, showing up, supporting their sports, supporting their basketball, games. Some of our kids, they don't have anybody in the stands, and that's really deflating. So just showing up to that, joining the PTOs, supporting the PTOs. It's so many different levels of interaction, commitments that our youth can benefit from, regardless of where you're from in the community, if you're in TPS, if you have kids or don't, making sure you show up to board meetings. That was one of the things that I was very amazed about in a sarcastic way, that no one knew about our board meetings. No one shows up unless they're upset. Then they show up.
Right.
But how can you hold us accountable to do what we're supposed to be doing for the district if you don't show up? And as a parent, I want to hold my board members accountable. So, there's different levels you can do it, from volunteering to showing up to participating. If you have a business, how can you intertwine with our business academy or our other schools to offer things? If you are agency or org, how is that where you have resources that we may need for our students and our families? Things like that. It's a lot of different ways.
Where's a place to get all this, on a TPS website or something?
Well, we're developing and we're re-engaging our community. I think one of the things for me as an organizer is to make sure it's accessible. And so everybody doesn't live on the internet, surprisingly, right? So how can we engage? Is that a newsletter? So we're really revamping how we communicate with our community about needs, resources, and achievements. So stay tuned for that.
The amazing thing in here is, and I asked somebody last week and they told me, and I've now forgot, so I can ask it again. This sounds like it's your full-time job, and it's not. It's more like a volunteer thing. You have a regular job.
Yes, I have a regular job. I am the Director of Inclusion and Access for the Toledo-Lucas County Homelessness Board. Board members really don't have a set hour. It's like, once again, what you pour into it, right? And people like, oh, well, you're making the big bucks. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am rolling in dough, up to $2,000 a year. This is awesome.
Is that what the school board pays?
Yes, up to $2,000 a year. You roughly get a stipend for every meeting, board meeting. So these people doing it because, I know I'm doing it because I want to make a change. I know.
Well, thank you.
I'm in the game to hopefully be able to fix the things that I struggle with as a student, and knowing that somebody needs to speak up for it, But yeah, we make the big bucks, That's why we do it, right? That's what they say anyway.
Now we can do the fun stuff.
Yes.
What should we talk about? What kind of fun things?
Oh, fun things.
Now we can have the colorful language.
Oh, now we can. I don't know if I can do that. Remember, I'm running, so I got to keep it PG-13.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I missed the ceremony last week. It happened when I was on the air here. So how did you get to be president? Did they nominate you? Did you chase it?
Oh, you chase it. You have to work for it. You're a worker. As vice president, I was sitting in myself to see if I was ready to even become president. Entertain the thought here and there, but it wasn't really like, okay, I'm going to be on the board, I'm going to be vice president, I'm going to be president, I'm going to be Thanos, right? It wasn't like that. It was something that I wanted to make sure I was ready for, because I know it's big shoes to fill from our previous presidents and on the board and stuff, and I wanted to make sure that my fellow board members believed in me. So having conversations, entertaining the conversation, one-on-one, like, hey, I'm thinking about this, where can I grow at? Where are some things that you want me to be better at so I can work on myself? Because if I am not a good president, that's going to make the board suffer, make the district suffer, and that's not the thing I wanted to do. What
are your constituents and the board people call you? Did they call you Miss President, Madam President?
We're trying to figure it out. Like, Madam President,
Your Honor.
Some people call me Your Honor. Some people call me Mom. well, besides my kids, I guess it's my kids. Nobody
I'm
else.
not calling you mom.
Nobody? No, really? Oh.
And you could say colorful stuff now because this stuff won't be on the radio.
You say that now.
I did, and you can say the colorful stuff because everybody can see your damn tweets. It's the same.
I'm good on my Twitter.
Yeah, somebody will always trip us up. If you have an enemy, they will find it.
It's right on the edge. Like, I'm really good. Like, I've been really. My campaign manager has beaten into me about not getting in trouble on social media.
I'm just prepared. There's going to be one day, and thankfully, I don't make a lot of enemies. Someone will dig up something.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be, I misworded it. And whenever I put stuff out, 94% of the time when I throw stuff out there, a lot of the filter is, who could half hear this or misconstrue it and talk to my boss?
See, I don't even think about that. I think about...
You need to.
I think about, did I spell that word right?
Oh.
That's what I think about. Like, oh God, is that word spelled wrong? Because you don't want to be a school board member. I mean, I have bad grammar already, so I don't want to be a school board member with bad grammar and can't spell. That'd just be bad for the business, man.
I'm deeply embarrassed a lot of the time because I of all the things in school, I was good in school with history, but nothing with numbers or science. I was a damn good speller.
Okay.
So now when we talk about mental health and stuff. My suicide will be brought on by autocorrect, killing me, murdering me to death.
Oh, my goodness.
It's so embarrassing because the AI in my phone, I'm like, I know I spelled that right.
Yeah.
And I look at the tweet and I'm like,
yeah. Well, see, here, so I'm going to give a secret. It's not a secret no more, I guess. So I'm dyslexic. So that really trips me up. And so I'll be like, okay, this word looks right. And then it'd be a red line under it.
You have an excuse.
Yeah,
I don't.
But you don't get an excuse. When you are an openly black queer woman, you don't get an excuse. It's like, well, you should have Googled it. It's like I couldn't spell it to put it in Google. So I'm always living in that hoping, making sure that the word is correct, and making sure everything is somewhat, grammarly-ish, But yeah, so as far as I've toned down my colorfulness.
Be careful. Be careful. So between the 3 kids, the school board, the homelessness stuff, and sitting on Twitter way too much, and waking up early.
Don't be calling me out about Twitter.
Look, it's how we connected.
But you're there, so you can't call me out if you're sitting there too.
I have no problem. If I will be on Twitter till it dies. If I didn't do what I did, it would be the only social media that I'm on.
Yeah.
Because I made some great friendships over the years.
I think so.
It's allowed me to curate the information that I want. It's like my morning newspaper.
Okay.
Instead of going from site to site to site to site to site.
Or you can just watch the news like I do.
I don't have time. I hate watching stuff. I'd rather read it on Twitter.
Yeah, I see.
So what do you do for fun and in your free time?
I watch cartoons.
Like what?
So Amazing World of Gumball, Bob's Burger. I watch Ice Road Truckers, which is like out of Europe. We have one in Canada. It was really dope. Wicked Tuna. I watch stuff that ain't got nothing to do with advocating wrong stuff and politics.
So you shut your brain off.
I check out.
Low calorie, brainless stuff.
Well, yeah. I eat high calorie food while watching low calorie stuff. Yeah.
I don't even want to do the nutrients on that, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Because I know a lot of people do that. Like, I'm like, why do we keep having singing shows? They're like, it's totally mindless, and I like shutting it off.
Yeah.
I like shutting off the day.
Yeah. I used to get into that, but now.
If you got to take the crew out for food, where are you guys going?
Oh, either Wingstop or pizza. That's the 2.
Pizza, where at?
It's usually Little Caesars because we can bring it home. My kids are antisocial, so it's like they don't want to do people, which I understand because that helps me not to do people sometimes.
I get it.
Yeah.
What do you have to yell at the kids most for?
Taking the dog out.
They won't?
It's just like they forget about her. Like after she gets cute and, and do her thing that they want her to do, like, a trick or something, and then all of a sudden, she's just going to use the bathroom in the floor. And it's like, dude, take her out.
What's her name?
Mitzi Boo Barnes.
That's a ridiculous name.
Hey, don't come for my dog now. Like we can fight.
Does it look like a Mitzi Boo Barnes?
She's fluffy. She's fancy. She's dirty right now. She got to go to the groomer, but I mean...
12 pounds, white shaggy fur?
Yeah. She's like a little cute, little irritating, barking dog that just sits on everything. Yeah.
I am stereotyping.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have a yard or do they have to go walk her?
No, they have a yard. That's the bad part. All you got to do is open the sliding door, I
can feel that, and maybe you too, because we had dogs all the time when I was growing up, and you would have thought my mom asked me to, make the moon stop shining... Do I have to go down and let the dogs out? I just did that.
Yeah. I remember them days. But it's funny because like now I'm always calling my mom, and I was calling my dad when my parents when he was alive as well. But I would call him like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was a butthead about that, or yeah, I could have filled the juice back up. My bad.
Right.
Or so now I'm living what I did to my parents. So yeah.
How often do you go back to Flint?
Well, I was going very rapidly during the water crisis because we did a couple water drives here from Toledo to Flint. And then after COVID hit, we kind of just slowed it down. And so we haven't really been back since then. I see my mom every now and then, but we try to make sure that, people are safe. We don't want to keep intertwining germs and COVID and whatever else is going on. So, not too often since COVID.